Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. It may be winter, but that does not mean you can't eat from your garden. Today we're talking about winter edibles. Also, it may be winter soon, but there are still things to do in the garden. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Carol Reese. Ms. Carol is the ornamental horticulture specialist for University of Tennessee Extension. And Rudy Pockenbarber is here. Dr. Rudy is the extension specialist for Alabama A&M University or Alabama Cooperative Extension. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Carol, it's always good to have you here.
Always fun to be here.
Always good to have you. Now, let's talk about cool season edibles. So there are cool season edibles?
In fact, I prefer cool season edibles. I mean, who likes gardening out in the heat, and the sweat, and the bugs? I know a lot of people do. Some people love the heat, but
Right.
I'm not. I'm a wimp. I often tell people that once it gets to be high summer, I want to go in the house and lie down and wait for October.
All right.
But I think
Oh,
it's
man.
easier to garden in the fall and spring, and some of these things we're going to talk about today will actually overwinter pretty well. And I'm all about pretty as well.
Okay.
As a human, I like to eat, but as I also enjoy beauty. So what we're going to talk about today is not only edible, but it'll be pretty in your landscape or in your winter containers. And a lot of people do like to do the winter containers. I personally like to have something right there on the deck I can
Oh, cool.
snag and grab and put in the kitchen without having to run out to the garden in the rain or the cold.
Okay, makes sense to me. All right, so which vegetables would you like to start with then?
I guess if you made me pick just one,
Just one. Oh, Ms.
I
Carol,
may have to go with the chards.
Okay, you like chard, all right.
I like chard. Honestly, I don't eat it as much as I like to look at it, but I can eat it, and I do like any kind of green actually chopped up. I always said if you put enough garlic and bacon in anything, it's going to taste good
Right.
and good
Bacon,
for
yeah.
you.
I can get with that.
But chard is so easily grown, and they have so many colors. The last few years, it's gotten easy to find some of the rainbow chards, even at the vegetable sections at most any garden center. And they're very tough. They hold up well through freezes. And that's the thing. Some of these things we plant as cool season, I want to kind of diss what people called flowering cabbage or flowering kale. They look
Yes.
like big, beautiful
Yes.
purple or white or pink roses. Because they melt. Once we have a good hard freeze, they're
They
mush.
go down. Yeah.
They do. So that's one reason the chards, in fact, I've had chard over winter, look good through spring, even not bolt in the heat of summer. And bolting, of course, is flowering and going to seed, which
Okay.
is usually the death of a biennial type plant like that or a winter annual. And it will come back, not as soon as we start to get some cool weather, it starts to flourish again. So I really have had them almost act like short-lived perennials.
Okay,
2 to 3 years sometimes I have one in my garden.
it's a long time, 2 to 3 years. Okay.
The bad thing is in the summer, of course, the insects do like to eat it. And you do have to worry about the same kinds of insects that would eat your cabbage.
Okay,
So you have to watch them for that and monitor for pest issues.
okay, so they're pretty much the same pests as well, okay.
The colors, though, are what are so amazing. Mostly it's stem color, but a lot of them will have deeply colored leaves as well. But the colors can be red, orange, hot pink, white. They're just incredible. And they're a plant that I like to say plays with light. I've been developing a program called Light and Shadow in the Garden.
Okay.
And you know enough about me that you know I designed my house so that the deck is backlit from my kitchen sink
Right.
as the sun is setting, and it makes everything kind of glow. I call it the magic hour. It gilds and it makes translucent leaves glow like stained glass, and the chards are like that. They really do beautiful things with light.
Okay. So you do like chard, don't you?
I do
Yeah,
like
can't you tell
chard.
me
I
that
could
you like chard a little bit?
I said rainbow, but there's neon lights, bright lights. You can there are a range of colors, but
Yeah.
you can also order solid colors if you want all red or UT orange.
Yeah, I've had the bright light.
orange.
Yeah, I like that bright light. That's
Yeah.
for sure. All right, now what about kale?
Well, I like to eat kale again. The way you cook it is all about that, and I like young kale in salads. That's yummy.
Yeah.
Chop it up fine and put a lot of good stuff in there. But the kale that I love and I was so impressed with, I fell in love with up north. They were using it in Chicago Botanic Garden and Minnesota in downtown plantings where there's a little bit of a heat island, and it would hold up through the winter months. And I was like, gosh, that's incredible. The red borer is a deep, rich purple. I mean, the ruffles are insane, the texture on that thing, and it grows like a little tree. So if you're doing a container combination, you know the old recipe, thriller, filler, spiller. It does a great job as that thriller. There is a green one too, winter borer, that's beautiful. I mean, it's a light green. In case you need some green, right?
Right. Yeah. Okay.
It's a color too.
Yeah. Just a color too.
It's a color too.
All right.
So they're not always available locally, although some of our local growers have started supplying it because there is good demand for it. I know some of the people up at Reelfoot at the resort area there, the Butterfly Gardens, have been carrying that now. But so growers you have to find it you can find it from them, maybe let them know that you want it. You can actually buy it in gallon pots or in 6-packs usually.
Okay, all right, 6-packs. All right, so let's run through some of these quickly, all right? Purple mustard.
Oh, easy. It's so easy. Now, it will get bitten a little bit in a real hard freeze, but it's one of those, if you get the giant red mustard, that's such a beauty.
It is.
And it's got this fabulous crumpled, puckered texture to the leaf. And if it does get knocked back a little bit in the winter, a couple of warm weeks, it comes right back out. So yeah, that's a really good one and easy. You can just kind of strew the seed around. I actually go around and sprinkle it in some of my gardens in pots as summer wanes, right about Labor Day, and some of it just comes up as the other things are dying down.
Okay. What about some of the Asian vegetables?
Asian, I always liked Asian vegetables anyway, Napa cabbage and such, but I fished an Asian vegetable catalog out of the garbage one day at work. Somebody had thrown it out.
Oh my God.
And I went crazy. The tatsoys, they're so beautiful, the glossy foliage, and they're like little flattened roses, and they come in greens and purples. Oh, they're just gorgeous things. And there's lots of daikon, lots of radishes, lots of hybrid greens. You could go nuts, and you can get online and find a lot of these as well.
Sure.
Now I want to talk about the dinosaur kale before we get away from kale, because it is one of your very, very toughest. It's a blue green, and again that gorgeous puckered texture, and it's a very arching plant that kind of gives a little umbrella effect over everything. And I always have to tell the story about Felder Rushing. You know, he's got his truck garden. He likes to put the vegetable garden in the back of his truck because he says that's his argument against people who say, I don't have time to garden. And it goes with him everywhere. And he says the dinosaur kale holds up to, cold 70-mile-an-hour winds with absolutely no damage. So that's a pretty good testament.
Yeah, it is.
It's also free insect control.
Good.
You're blowing the bugs off.
Oh, okay. Makes sense. All right, I got it. So let's hit the evergreen herbs. Can we do that?
I do. Parsley number one, because parsley's going to stay green through most of our winter unless we have a really severe cold snap. Cilantro, not quite so much. And a lot of people want to plant that in the spring, and it's going to quickly bolt. It actually does better as a fall crop. And then it'll make it through a milder winter fine with no dinging, and then all through spring as well. So you get several months of parsley. And often cilantro if we don't have a really cold winter. And the green is just fabulous, especially on the parsley. The flat-leaf parsley is the most desired culinary-wise, but the little crinkly, fine-textured one, the fern leaf that is the crispa, has got the most gorgeous color to it. So do those. Also, oregano is going to be one of your evergreen perennial herbs. Thyme will also work. And rosemary, though, borderline sensitive to cold. So I usually use rosemary in a pot that I can easily pull back onto the porch or into the garage if we have a really cold snap. But add those to your winter containers, a few pops of pansies, which are edible too.
Yes,
For the bright color, and you've got edible and beauty.
Edible and beauty. Thank you, Ms. Carol. That's good stuff. Edible and beauty. I like that. Thank you much. There are a number of gardening events going on in the next couple of weeks. Here are just a few that might interest you. All right, Rudy, let's talk about landscape winter management. What do we need to be doing as winter approaches?
Well, as winter approaches, I think what most folks tend to forget is that this is the perfect time to try and get back out in the yard. During the summertime, as Carol was saying, you know, you want to get inside, you don't want to be outside. I'm the kind of person that doesn't want to work outside as well when it's really hot.
Right.
But you tend to forget that, you know, during the wintertime, that's a time where you can actually start to prepare for your spring. So getting your lawn ready for the winter times, you can actually do your final cuts for your cool season grass. You can do your final cuts and make sure that you keep them at least 2 inches in depth minimum for your cool season. Your warm season, you might want to cut them down a little bit shorter if you want. They'll start to turn brown as well, such as your Bermudas and so forth. Now, when they start to go dormant, there isn't really a reason for you to go ahead and try and fertilize.
Right.
I think that's kind of a wasted effort because nothing is going to be happening during the wintertime for dormant lawns, but you can do some type of fortification for some of your cool season grasses. Then also your irrigation system. If you have an irrigation system in your lawn area, you can also get those prepared. Make sure you blow out and drain those lines so they don't bust during the wintertime. And then also getting your shrubs ready and your beds ready. Shrubs, you can go ahead after your last frost, go ahead and start pruning and getting those cut back. Any of your ornamental grasses, you can go ahead and let those grow. I would not prune those back until the springtime because what you end up happening with your ornamental grasses, I'm a real big fan of ornamental grasses because it adds that texture and color and also sound during the wintertime. Which is just wonderful because during the wintertime, usually it's pretty drab, you don't have much color, but you can still add texture. And then so during the actual spring, early spring, you would cut those back to about 12 inches to 6 inches, depending upon the type of ornamental grasses.
By the way, a friend gave me a tip on that too. He puts a bungee cord around it before he cuts.
Cut it.
Yes, I think when I first started out doing that in landscapes, the biggest thing was, you know, what are you going to use? Are you going to use a weed eater? Do you use shears? But it's just a matter of trying to control all that huge bunch. And I'm glad you mentioned that. Tying it up first is the best way to do it, and then cutting through it so you don't have to drag all this mess out everywhere.
Right,
so
that's pretty good. And you actually did mention something that I hear Ms. Carol mention all the time.
Yeah.
Sound in the garden. Did you hear her mention that?
I do.
Because you say that all the time.
I love things that move.
the sound in the garden, I think that's one thing that people tend to forget is they think about color and they think about texture. But the sound is something that most people are not really familiar with or don't really think about.
Right.
And it provides some shelter. I often see birds going into the inside of big grass cuts.
Yes, that's true. And also some rodents as well, but you know, we try and steer away from those. But also, you can also take your leaves. Any of those cuttings, you can then recycle and put that into your compost pile. Again, if they are diseased, make sure those particular items you don't put in your compost because you don't want to continue the cycle for disease because they can overwinter in your compost. So anything that is actually diseased or has kind of a pest on them, you will destroy those or put them in the trash. But anything that is of good, sound nature, you can put into your compost pile. And then also don't forget about your not your rodents, but your birds. Wildlife as well. To if you do have a bird bath, to try and drain that out, or if you are going to provide some kind of liquid or water for them during the winter months, try and maybe have a heater. And then also some good sources of seed or food during the wintertime as well.
Rudy, I want to mention too that the shrubs is, remember, those people might forget that the spring flowering shrubs need to be left alone.
You have to make sure that once they flower, that's the best time to actually then prune. So make sure you wait till they actually flower, then actually do the pruning. So a lot of times we tell folks to make sure that after they flower, and then once the leaves come down, especially for the deciduous, like your crepe myrtles and so forth, you can do your pruning then.
Right. Okay. Now, what about so your insect pests? What about applying oils?
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, this is the best time as well. During the dormant period, this is the best time to do any of your dormant oils to address any kind of scale or thrips or so forth. And so this is the best time to do that. Make sure, depending upon what type of dormant oil you're going to be utilizing, to look at the instruction. Because there are some requirements as to the actual temperature requirements, because if it gets too cold to actually apply your dormant oil, it may not be just as effective. So that's one thing you have to take into account.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's go back to the cool season grasses for a second.
Yes.
Our fescue. What do we need to fertilize the fescue with?
Well, nitrogen, again, is not something that you're going to be utilizing during the dormant periods, but your actual phosphorus and maybe your potassium as well. And some of those fertilizers that are a little bit stronger in those particular aspects and higher in concentration, less in the nitrogen, is something that you're going to be utilizing during the cool season months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And here we always talk about the soil test.
Yes.
You know, this is a good time to do that. Would you agree with that?
Yes, that's the best time, because during the course of, let's say, 2 or 3 years during your actual cycle of your lawn, things can change. And so it's best to monitor that. And if you haven't done a soil test, make sure you get one before you do any application of fertilizers to make sure you're doing the right thing, and there it's going to be effective. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be very effective.
And can we mention like a little bit about, I hate to see any shrub shorn, no matter what time of year. And I'm a big fan of cutting back at the joint, even to reduce the size if it's gotten too big. Even if it's a great big old forsythia, you can follow those bigger limbs way back into the shrub and nip them off so that you don't see where you had the cut.
Right. I think one thing, I think the easiest way for most folks is that they'll just go around and shear things.
Yeah.
And
that's your meatball that you always talk about.
Yeah, the meatballs, the
meatball.
cans, or the rectangles, and
Rectangles.
that's I'm not a big fan of those. I think one of the biggest things that you have when you're doing your pruning, to take the time and effort to really think out the process.
Okay.
And so a lot of times when you're doing your pruning, either there's going to be some topping, or some tips, or actually thinning out from the middle. And that's really what the kind of pruning that you should be working with, not something that's going to just wipe things off and then shape things, because that's going to actually not help the plant and destroy the actual features of the plant.
Sure.
It's art and science. I always tell people step back and study.
Right.
And if it's things like, say, Japanese maples touching the house or over the sidewalk, if you'll reduce those, take those limbs off that are the offensive limbs that are touching the house or over the sidewalk, back where they came from the trunk or the larger limb, you retain the grace. And eventually you get it up and over, instead of, if you whack it off, you'll get that little witch's broom of regrowth. That's ugly.
And that's typical what you see with a lot of crepe myrtle.
Yes, the murder.
Right, the crepe myrtle, where they'll just cut it off to a stump or to a main limb, and then you end up with this ball of like a witch's broom, and so that really destroys the whole structure of the plant.
This looks so bad. Jason always says, "Stop the chop."
Stop the
Stop
chop.
the chop.
Stop the chop.
Now, I had purchased some that had crepe myrtle bark scale, and I just decided to start them over.
Okay.
Wow.
I cut them off and retrained to 5 to 7 stems as we were taught in school.
Okay.
If you want a multi-stem crepe myrtle.
Yeah.
And so I just went ahead and began them over made it easier to get rid of the problem.
All right.
And maybe out where I am, I won't have to treat.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. One last thing I would like to cover, though, going back to the leaves, can we get folks to stop bagging the leaves up and leaving them on the curb?
Yeah.
Oh,
in the
yes,
plastic
definitely
bags?
so. I mean, this is the best time. Also, you can use your lawnmower and then just go ahead and chop everything up and then reincorporate it into the actual soil.
Right.
Same thing for not bagging your actual lawnmower. When you're doing the grass cuttings, don't bag. Just go ahead and mulch.
Or pile it up somewhere. I love how, I keep talking about Felder today, but how simple. Some people make composting very difficult, and they have all these rules and proportions.
Exactly.
And Felder says it's real simple. Don't throw it away, pile it up somewhere.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It's a very simple concept. I think, you don't really need those containers. You don't need all these different ratios. Just allow it to just decompose, and then you're good.
All right. Great discussion. That's good stuff. Thank you much, Rudy. Appreciate
Thanks.
A great plant to consider this next summer is sorrel. This is Jamaican sorrel or rosella. It's a hibiscus, and it makes great tea. And this is how you extract the seeds or the seed pods using just a simple milkshake straw. And there's a seed pod, and this is the calyx that you will dry and make tea out of. In Jamaica, they make a punch out of this with cinnamon and ginger and allspice. And boil that down, strain it, and put a little simple syrup in it and some rum, and it's fantastic.
All right, so here's our Q&A segment. Y'all ready? These are
Maybe.
good questions. Maybe.
Maybe.
We'll see.
Maybe.
Depends on the question, right?
Yeah.
All right, so here's our first viewer email with a picture. I have a plum tree that bears fruit and is in full sun. This past Saturday, October 19th, I noticed it was blossoming. Why is it doing that this fall? Will this impact its fruit production in the spring? Should I trim it? All right, this is Ian in Memphis. So we have a couple of things going on here, right? It's
We're
blooming
all
now.
fruit people here, so
Right.
we're all
Yeah.
dying like, I got this
Right.
one.
So it's blooming right now. Will it impact fruit production in the spring? And should I trim it? You first up.
I'd say that it already thought it had gone dormant. You know,
Uh-huh.
we had
Yeah.
such a hot, stressful. A lot of plants went ahead and went into early dormancy just to avoid the horrible heat and drought we had.
Yeah.
And then as soon as we got some rain and cold, it was like, oh,
Boom,
Yes.
it starts to come back out.
will it affect production a little bit?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I thought. Maybe a little.
Yeah.
Hello.
Not that much. I mean, it's still going to set some flower buds for this year. But yeah, I wouldn't prune it back.
No.
Because then you're going to ruin your next year's crop. But yeah, it's nothing that you need to worry about because again, it goes through that cycle. It goes through a stress cycle. It was stressed out, and then it came out to better conditions, and then it decided to come back out again. So
And a reduction in number of fruit often means larger fruit too.
That's
true.
I have a hard
Right.
time making myself thin.
that's
So
true.
it's sort of a natural thinning.
So you might get
natural.
you might get a larger fruit because it'll be thinned out slightly.
So there you have it, Ian. We appreciate that question. And should I trim it now?
No.
Don't do that. Not right now, okay? Just hold off on that. All right, here's our next viewer email. I've heard this question a lot. I have a large mass of ivy that is climbing my tree. How can I get rid of it without killing the tree? And this is Sue in Collierville. So, Gary, how can you get rid of this large mass of ivy without killing the tree? But it's climbing the tree, though.
Well, you've got to cut it at the base. You've just got to
base.
sever
Yes.
all those vines, and it's going to take a long time for all those vines to drop out of that tree unless you can hire a great big truck with a cherry picker to pull it all out for you. It's just going to be a matter of waiting it out. And then any new growth that shows up, I always say cut it down as close as you can to the ground.
Okay.
And any new growth, that's going to be a little bit more soft and succulent and would take up an herbicide better
Yes.
as far as killing
agree.
the roots.
Yes.
Agree.
People who don't want to use herbicides, you're
I
going
might
to
say, yeah,
dig
we have those
and
who don't want to
dig
use
and
herbicides.
dig
That's true.
So they
and
have to
dig
dig.
and
Yeah.
dig.
So-
Every time you dig.
It's a deep.
It's
Yeah.
it's a
Taproot
long
system.
process. Ivy's really resilient, so that's the biggest problem. And the root system is going to stay there for quite some time.
It's massive.
It is.
Extensive.
It is.
Right. But again, what if somebody wanted to use a herbicide, though? Do you have one that you would recommend? Is what I'm asking. Yeah, if somebody
well,
wanted to use a herbicide.
I'm glyphosate. I
Okay.
still
Right.
believe in glyphosate. You know, the evidence shows that it breaks down very quickly once we get into soil.
Okay. Okay. So that is one that they can use. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah, just in case somebody wants to use that.
Yes, and I've warned them against using one of those very potent brush killers.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because
Yeah,
that's going to
'cause-
actually hurt
yeah,
your tree.
it's going to hurt the tree because they have other chemicals besides glyphosate in it.
Right. Right.
So
I think
it's
triclopyr.
Triclopyr, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll take care of everything.
Yeah. Sure will. Yeah, so you have to be careful with that.
Oh, and even that Roundup 365. Be
See, I'm glad you mentioned
careful.
that.
Yes,
That's right.
You're right. The
Because
different
it has
formulations.
other-
Right.
yeah.
That's right.
So
That's
don't do it.
If you just do the standard glyphosate,
Yeah.
standard Roundup, then
Yeah.
you're okay. But yeah, as Carol was
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah. See, I'm
the
glad you
different
mentioned that.
formulations
Right.
are tricky
They are
because
tricky.
it's all just under Roundup,
Yeah.
and people just pull things off the shelf.
And don't read the label. Read the
Read the
label.
label. Read the label, Miss Sue, all right? All right, so thank you for that question. Here's our next viewer email. When should I cut back my pampas grass? Okay, what do you think about that?
Well, we
We
did
talked a
already
little bit
discuss.
about that.
Yes,
Yeah, huh?
Yeah.
I like the sound, the movement.
Right, exactly.
And pampas grass is one of the very ones that I often see birds take cover in.
Oh, okay. Mhm.
'Cause
It's
it's so
protection.
large.
Yeah. The cold winter winds, it's good insulation and protection. Other critters, yes, can be
Yes.
in there as
Yeah.
well. I don't cut anything down like that until late winter, as you said. Because I want to enjoy it. Who wants to look at shorn things all
Right,
winter long?
right.
And I do the same thing with my shrubs. I'm going to wait till later in the winter to prune because I feel like just providing some protection and perhaps the remnants of, I call the ghosts of summer past, even the old faded blooms on a
Exactly.
hydrangea, for
Right,
example.
sure, exactly.
You know, there's some beautiful things in the winter if you look for them, not as colorful, but the shapes and the textures. And so I would not cut it down until February, maybe in Memphis.
Oh, wow.
Maybe in
Okay,
Memphis,
February,
yeah,
okay.
about February.
Because it'll start putting up new growth pretty early in the side where it's protection.
Okay.
And I waited too late sometimes to cut grasses back. I cut off those graceful little tips. So often March, at least by March,
least
but
by
I'd say
okay.
February would be
least
great.
March.
Yeah, the later you wait, the reduced amount of time you have with that stark cut back appearance. And you'll have some new growth coming up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, you tie it up, right?
Tie it up, yeah.
Okay, I like that. Okay. All right, so Ms. Carol, Dr. Rudy, it's been fun. It's been fun.
Always.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is familyplot@wkno.org, and the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for joining us. Fall is in the air. To get a head start on next year's garden, go on over to familyplotgarden.com. We have tons of videos about different kinds of plants and also how to prepare the ground for planting. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.